Three-player Slayer co-op is here, primarily pioneered by Velser. Let's talk about everything you need to know and what my first impressions are. So, I was joined by MuricanEagle and Deadkey, and as you see here, we are playing on the battle mode map, Tundra. All three of us have a fully upgraded arsenal with a few exceptions. We'll talk about that here in a second. And we can help each other out and strategize and say, hey, you go here, I'll back you up here, and it's so cool. So we have a full arsenal, a few exceptions. We have the Horde Hammer, if you want to use it. Getting this thing to work is pretty sweet. Now, as you see here, we are looking at each other's health at the top. We're going through all the weapons that we have. We have a few different runes: Savagery, Punch and Reeve, Blood Fuel, Desperate Punch runes with air control. Now, there are some reasons that these runes are this way. There's some PvP logic that makes things a little tricky to make everything work, so we can't change the rune loadout yet. And other runes weren't chosen because they're either buggy or they affect players that don't have the rune equipped, such as slowing time like Saving Throw or Chrono Strike. However, I think this is really cool as you see how we're working together. I remember the first time I called out in the match, like, hey, going after these turrets. You know, they spawned in and I went to cover it. It's like, wow, this is cool. Or the buff totem right here. Like, the buff totem spawns in a random location, and then I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to go get the buff totem. And we can really feel communicating. Like, I used to play multiplayer back in the day, like with Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and just, it's so cool to be able to talk to other Slayers as you play. Now, what we have run into is that there were some crashes. We're not exactly sure why. We were playing on the latest version as of the time of this recording, and we have figured out, it seems like the person that's the host with the best computer is the best odds for it. We made matches, look how cool that was. We made matches 6 minutes in, 3 minutes in, and then a minute in when I hosted. RIP. Now this actually goes about 15 to 20 minutes until it becomes an endless randomizer. Holy cow. So there's, not the spoiler alert, but a few possessed marauders in the end and some pain elementals. We didn't quite get that far. It was a little tricky doing glory kills, making everything work. As you saw just a moment ago, the riot soldier didn't GK properly, and it seems like the enemies target one Slayer, so if you are the victim of the double marauders that come into play, your friends can back you up, help give you support fire, and you distract the marauders. And what would really be cool that I've seen in some conversation, you know, one Slayer has a microwave beam and the others have to protect him while he's microwaving, or maybe switch off. Just a lot of really cool potential here. Now, Slayers don't have the ice bomb. This was removed because it caused some lag and it may crash the game for the clients that are along the way. So there are some different things to work with, but that just makes it interesting in that you have the strategy element. You don't have your ice bomb. You now have a friend or two to take place of that. You'll be fighting a lot of enemies like double possessed that normally you wouldn't play on your own, but you can see here, you can pretend that this is, I don't even know what I'm saying. This is such a cool experience. We let those spirits go. We let them run. Now, Slayers don't have the health for blood and the armor for blood crystal upgrades, and now these were removed because the client was unable to fill the blood punch meter with health and armor pickups. Now, even though they could pick them up at full health or armor, is what Velser's note says. So what that sounds like to me is that it's another one of those PvP things that would be tough to make work, and just unfortunately doesn't work out that way. Now, as I mentioned, the Slayers can't damage each other regardless of, well, anything. So rockets and micro missiles no longer deal self-damage, which is interesting too. Now you can see here I'm running around, I'm trying to help them out, but things are going to get a little nasty here in just a second, as you will soon see. Now, the HUD notifications don't show up with the PvP logic enabled, Velser said, and if you do see enemies with the red buff, that does mean a buff totem is nearby. So it's really cool that it's a random spawn, and everyone can kind of go out on their own to find it and try to find it quicker, but by doing that, you're opening yourself up to a lot of buffed enemies that are coming for you. So what do you do there? Do you split up and each try to stake a different location for the totem, opening yourself up for a lot of buffed enemies that you normally wouldn't have? Or do you stick together potentially longer to find the totem and then fighting more and more? It's so cool there. Now, Archviles, Armored Barons, Bloodmakers, and Screechers don't spawn. And the reasoning for this is that they're too unstable or they're too buggy for co-op, and that spirits won't ever possess other enemies because the non-host players can't kill them. Now, it's interesting too because that gives a very tough buff when it's a spirit and really makes you think about what you want to go for. Now, I would like to hopefully see if that's possible to change, but just to look at all of this. All of this is done primarily by one person with Comvaz helping, and there is some more in the works. It's just so cool to see this happen. Now, let's take a look at another thing. Any player may change the music switch with the following command, and you can do ambient, light, heavy, boss music, a ton of different things here, which is really cool if you have a preference of your song. Now, what you have to look at, this is sort of Ultra Nightmare in a way, and stick around just to see the rest of it here, because if the third Slayer dies, the other two can continue on, as you'll see momentarily, and we kept going, but if the next Slayer dies, then the round ends. So you could be alive and your friends die and it's game over. So you really have to protect each other. You're incentivized to keep your teammates alive and maybe, say, get an enemy into stagger to help your friend get an opening for a glory kill. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is a beta version that was just released, and there's so much potential. Let's talk a little bit more about this too. Like I said, it's kind of like Ultra Nightmare. You can do any difficulty you want, from I'm Too Young to Die to Nightmare, which is really cool because this opens it up for a wide group of players. Say you don't want to play on Nightmare. You have your options to play on the skill level of your choice, which is a really, really good touch. Now, it looks like that you can execute a command to restart the map with the lobby, which is also neat. And like I said, after about 15 to 20 minutes, you will get access to an endless randomizer. Now, as you see here, we are on the Tundra map, and there are a total of 9 battle mode maps, and we just had a crash here, so I'm going to pull up some new footage for you. So the potential for all these other maps is great. Now, I would really like to see a master level or a campaign, so let's talk about that for a minute. That might be hard to do because the pickups don't exactly work with the PvP logic, which is the game's logic and how it operates whenever you're in a player versus player scenario, like these battle mode maps. But can you imagine going into World Spear Master level, splitting it up with your friends, or maybe even playing a harder version that you have to work together with? There's so many possibilities here, and if you could have an upgrading campaign, how cool would it be if you maybe had to split things up? Say, hey, I want to take this crystal for an upgrade, you take the next 2 Praetor tokens, or hey, I want to take this upgrade, you do that, while still making the gameplay fun and exciting. Now, really, Doom Eternal wasn't designed to have 2 people in it, so all of this is community made, and the coolest part is, it was all done without modding tools, so you can just imagine, this is using what is in the game already. This is all included, so if we had access to really make a co-op experience for console as well, using new things, new assets, snap map style, or even beyond, how cool would that be? If you really think about like the Icon of Sin boss fight, or the Dark Lord, and all these things that we could have done. I mean, it's a blast when you're playing with 1 and 2 other people, communicating, figuring out how to play this game in a way you've never played it before, divvying up enemies. There's just so many cool things to say about it, and the fact that it's community made. 2 years later, we have fresh new things to keep this alive, and I fully believe that Doom Eternal will benefit from stuff like this. I mean, I just want you to think about it. Like, would you want to try this out? If you would, it's in the modding discords. More builds are coming out. This is a very fresh new thing, so a lot of potential in the future. So be sure to subscribe. Check out my other video here on Doom Eternal in the 2 years that it's been here. My name is Austin. Thank you so much for watching.